Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. This morning, I casually woke up and thought, that the secrets of a mysterious world require to be uncovered. And I thought about what method of, or what intelligent approach the human being is using to, in some sense, if there was a secret mystery to the realm, to uncover it. And my first answer, the first approach, how would I say it? When I think about things, to me, it's pretty much layers of reality colliding with one another, and it's like a gladiator arena of perception. And then one perception stands above the rest, and so man can feel he has certainty. My first approach to this idea of uncovering the secrets of a mysterious realm is that it cannot be uncovered. If we make the starting point if we make the starting point that whatever we do, the secret of reality cannot be accessed, on some level we save ourselves disappointment. I learned something from Elon Musk about how to run a business, which was really fascinating when I heard him say it, where he was saying that there's some people who run a business and they're like, my business is going to succeed, and there's some people who on a realist level consider that the business is going to fail and they want to reduce the chances of failure. To me, with this context of there being a mystery to the world and the human being temporary and there being extinction, it's as if before the human being, it's another way of saying that once the human species has a contentment with probabilities of its ending, it will also have contentment with probabilities of beginning. Just like a business where the person's like, all right, this business is going to fail, I'm going to reduce the chance of, I'm going to reduce the percentage of failure. Similarly, the human being finds itself in an unknown, mysterious world, and it wants to use its intelligence to reduce the percentage of what remains as a mystery. Now, there are challenges to this, right? To me, there are challenges, but there's also, there's advantages and disadvantages, right? The advantage to the consideration of the failure of the species to never discover, the mystery of its world. It's as if in the inner realms, failure is being envisioned too soon. Not too soon, but failure is being envisioned before the outcome. And so it's as if there, how do I say this? The impossible gives the person a contentment to not suffer over spilt milk. I am saying that if we consider that there's a chance we will never understand it, then we have nothing to lose by attempting to understand it. It's the same thing I would say with the concept of rejection. A person's mind probabilizes a sort of reality, and if the person, it's another way of poetically saying, if you are already rejected in your mind, it's like if there is an inevitability acknowledged in the inner realms, then the fear of that inevitability in the outer realms is less. But anyways, this is just how to approach it. I'm saying that we should fear nothing by being incapable of understanding the secret of the realm, and there's nothing wrong with the unknown. What is wrong is how knowledge interacts with the unknown. Now, in the subtitle, I've written Supreme Clues. To me, this is actually, I'm using this word from a philosophical context. To me, the purpose of science is to find answers, and the purpose of philosophy is to ask questions. And when I ask myself, what in this world, where I am existing as a human being, present among the human species in this universal cycle, what clues? What sort of clues have the greatest chance of uncovering the secret of the realm? Pretty much, supreme clues is another way of saying that a living mystery has been made contact with. For the sake of the current world we're living in, the person has to communicate as a person. That means there are, okay, let me say it this way. These are some of the clues that I have found. To me, when I look at visual perception, I notice that visual perception divides into what? It divides into geometry, it divides into color, it divides into space, and then it divides into density or weight. So what I mean by this is that when the eyes of the human being open in the conscious waking stage, and the ancient yogis had a very kind of epic way of acknowledging reality, where they said that pretty much all conscious living entities, they are experiencing three phases of life. The conscious waking state, where I'm giving this talk to you right now, then there's the deep sleep state, and then there's the dream state. To the Vedic mind, and as mentioned in the Ribu Gita, there is also a fourth state, and this fourth state is known as Turiya. Turiya is actually one of the clues and greatest doors to the mystery of reality, but I'll talk about the other dimensions first. To me, when I look at the behavior of a universal sector, when I wonder about how this world is behaving, I notice that all conscious creatures have a relationship with their shape. After they have found contentment having the relationship as a shape, they have a relationship with the space where the shape is in. the mystery of geometry. Pretty much, shape and geometry is the hidden language of visual meaning. Because the human being sees itself to exist, forgive me guys, this is it's early morning and to cut through the veil of the senses is a bit of a energetic task. I'll say this, that pretty much there's a geometric clue to reality. It's how shape is even here at all. When one wonders about the nature of shape, you can go as far as Plato's world of forms, right? This dude perceived that there's a dimension to reality where everything has a geometrical translation. At least this is Mr.Within's view on how Plato saw it. You know, what we know from Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, and, you know, ancient Greek philosophers that have shaped the West was that there was, I don't know where in Italy, but pretty much they find this, you know, hidden library, and that's where all the books from Socrates and Plato come from. But pretty much the idea was that there is a dimension here, the same time, and imagine this world where human beings have been happy and suffering, and evolution has played its psychological games. It's as if there is a dimension where there is no judgment on shapehood. Because really, human morality is judgment on shape, right? The only reason human beings care for the concept of balance is because they can recognize something not being in shape, right? But when you look at an existential purpose to life, you see that the purpose of geometry is to exist. That means all good and bad concepts have the simple existential purpose to exist as themselves. But when it comes to their experiential purpose, this is based on their role in the grand scheme of things. To me, I have understood that novelty is born from contact, from contacting the unknown. The summit of knowledge is really to realize after you have reached the peak of the mountain of knowledge, you're looking at an unknown sky. You know? Beyond the world, a world with many dimensions of meaning, there is a pure geometrical level to reality. It's another way of saying if we think that the smallest building blocks to reality is like the periodic table of the elements, I am pretty much telling you that geometry is the building block. There's a divinity to geometry, which is how the world is shaped from the beginning. What consciousness is the interaction with shape. So anyways, I want the listeners to consider that a supreme clue to the mystery of reality is pretty much all the questions we can ask about the shape, about the design. People don't realize designers are some of the most powerful philosophers in reality. The next consideration is color. Now, color takes us to the mystery of light. The mystery of light takes us to the mystery of perception. That means what is allowing us to be aware there is space, there is color, there is shape to things is actually the presence of light. You know, sometimes I look at the ancient Egyptians and people are like, yo, these dudes worship the sun. But really, without the sun, without light in the room, what would there be to do and see? You know, imagine 8 billion creatures evolving in the dark. Now imagine 8 billion creatures evolving in the light. The moment they're in the light, they have access to organized memory. That means without light, can we say, like, what kind of memory is the human being creating for itself, for its future self? You know, there's a joy to life, which is how the past happened. There's a joy to life in regards to how the present is being. And poetically, I would tell you there is a sort of future joy. There's the joy of how the future will be. That is actually the greatest joy. You know, when you look at human beings, our emotions turn us into sacrificial creatures. That means I have watched in movies. There was this movie called Stranger Than Fiction, epic movie. And in this movie, the main character sees this little girl about to get hit by a bus, so he jumps in front of the car, or bus, or whatever it is. You know? And I always thought about it, why is it that there is a built-in urge to guard novelty, to guard the future generations? We don't know it. You know, you could have the most evil person right on the planet, and let's say the most evil person became really lonely, right? And then he realized that the evil was in some sense like an evil mindset sacrifices the future. I shouldn't use that word. I should say it's as if sometimes the future is greater than the present, whether we know it or not. Really, what evolution is that eyes are expanding in the world. So the mystery of light is realized, like light is a clue. You know, to me, I have such a unique theory on how really consciousness came about, and to me, I have this strange feeling like the sun is the weirdest thing in our solar system. The sun is it's the only thing that doesn't make sense to me. Not astrophysically, astronomically. I'm not talking about the constitution, like what the sun is, right? I am talking about if there was an advanced civilization what would it use to broadcast intelligence throughout the solar system? Like the sun, light is an information carrier. Light carries information. And we think that it needs to contact something and then the information is carried, but I feel that there is geometrical imprints. Pretty much light, like imagine, okay, imagine an advanced civilization hypothetically managed to use the sun as a broadcasting system. And all that it had to do was to go plant potential particles or seeds on different planets, and if the light hit them, they would activate. To me, nature was seeded, right? It's kind of like asking the chicken or which came first, the chicken or the egg, but now instead of a chicken, it's a universe. And instead of an egg, it's the sense of self in the universe. Pretty much the mystery of the human mind has the world come first, then the self, or was the self here first before the world? Usually, if you are on the side where the self came into the world, you are a self-worldist, rather than a world selfist. You will have this notion of pretty much gods will linger. It's as if you will be part of the whispers of the gods. It's another way of saying that if the mind considers it as the source of the world, the free will has a freedom to interfere in interpretation. But if the world comes first, then the ego it's like it can't be first. It's another way of saying that where does meaning come from? Does it come from within us, or does it come from outside of us, or does it come from how what is within us interacts with what's outside of us? I have thought about, my role in society, in civilization. And I have thought about how do we not only mainstreamize the edge of philosophy, which is metaphysics. It's like, how do we get a species to not just notice that it's an unknown attention moving in a known world, but that its relationship with reality can be very mysterious, right? There was a time in my life where I would look at myself and I wouldn't think of myself as mysterious or mystical in any sense. I remember sometimes I would look in the mirror and I would be like, who is this guy? It's like, what am I looking at? And little did I know, that the secret of consciousness is being all of us. Technically, we are cosmically aware beings. It's another way of saying that if somebody is aware inside a cosmos, and if the cosmos is aware of itself, would both be considered as a cosmic being. The mystery I'm trying to point to is not just past, not just the human beings wondering about the past. The type of mystery I'm suggesting is really how the future is going to go to a place where people are going to actually know that the species doesn't know. Right now, there's illusions. It's like just like children believe in Santa Claus. Materialists believe in the concept of materialism when the sense of self that's considering matter being physical is a subjective event. The species has to wonder about the unknown. That's it. Now, this has dimensions. When it goes to the dimensions of self, it's another way of saying like a great clue to the great mystery of the realm is perception, which the space, color, geometry, shape, and light fall into it, right? And how would I say this? It's like there's questions we can ask about how the self, again, is knowing the world, and how the world is being the self. That when we wonder about how the world is being the self, we quickly realize that the world is a dehumanized event. And because it is dehumanized, the subject of the human being may not relate to the secret mystery of the outer world. So pretty much the mysteries of the outer realm, they belong to an intelligence that is dehumanized. We will understand this soon. And when I say soon, is that the species has to confront the infinite archetypes of its fear, right? That means people who fear aliens, like you think about, like in the year 5025, nobody cares. You know, imagine an alien lands on Earth and nobody cares the alien landed on Earth, and the alien was like, there was a time, you know, human beings would be fascinated when an alien would land on Earth. Now they're like, you know, alien immigration, like actual extraterrestrial immigration, like human beings can complain about that in the future. But really, the full realization is that intelligence surpasses its memory. That means sometimes I think about it, like if I was, you know, walking in a park and an extraterrestrial landed, you know, and was like, hey man, I've subscribed to your YouTube channel. And the alien asked me, what are human beings? I would tell you is that we are an unknown evolutionary force that when it identifies with its memories, it suffers. When it identifies with novelty, it is liberated. You know, to me, enlightenment was another way of saying that there is a new self. But this new self is beyond time, which is another way of saying that, like this might sound a bit bizarre, but it's like a person listening to the engine of a motorboat. Similarly, it's like listening, just realizing how you're being a human being is a sort of biochemical mechanism, and this like it's as if we're a candle. Like imagine consciousness is like the candle light, the flickering candle flame. The brain is the wick of the candle, and the body of the candle is like, you know, the body of the human being. So it's as if the candle flame is suddenly thinking that it's the body of the candle, and it's not wrong, right? Like we know that the wick of the candle connects the candle flame to the body, but the candle flame is not the same, is not of the same substance as the body, you know? Like the periodic table could be incomplete, and it probably is, but like, when I say incomplete, that means there's so many things we haven't discovered yet. But to me, it's like the mystery of mysteries is the mystery of the conditional. The mystery of the conditional leads to the unconditional, and the ultimate question being, excuse me, the ultimate question a human being can ask is, how is the unknown being the unknown? That means first you wanted to know how a self is living in a world. You realize it's a privilege of energy. When you wonder about how the world is living, it's not just the privilege of energy. It's like, just like how we open our eyes and the world becomes internalized. Similarly, it's as if we are the imagination of higher dimensions. That's another way of saying it. You know? There's a huge chance that everything in life right now is being live streamed from a higher dimension. You know, I always thought about religions being like the soul is beyond the mind and body, therefore the soul is like, you know, a connection to like God, which is like, you know, the source from the Abrahamic lens. it's as if what is pulling the weight of reality? What is moving in the middle of nowhere? That is true, understanding of reality. The question, what is moving in a context that doesn't have to be anything, right? It's as if the soul is a mystery, but it's a mystery that it's like a secret that to itself has no secrets. Just like, let's say, a person moving a drone camera or a remote control car, the person who's holding the remote control is like it cannot be affected, by what happens to the destiny of the car. It's another way of saying, like, a person plays a video game character, the video character dies in the video game, but the person doesn't freak out anymore, right? They just reset the game and they play again, And it's as if this mystery of biological evolution would be something like as if what is pressing the keys on an unknown keyboard that is moving, let's say, free will for the human species here. It's another way of saying, like, there's two paths to paradise. There's a paradise in the outer realms which we have not experienced yet as a species. That's the major motivation towards an advanced civilization. And then there's a paradise behind our eyes, but this paradise is a state of being. Imagine somebody, like, let's say a religious person followed all the religious, principles, and they were like, okay, now what? It's as if we followed the instruction booklet, now what? And then the person comes to realize that the test of truth is not of the mind. Like, religious books are not saying that, only the mind of the person is going to heaven. Right? What I'm trying to say is that it's as if, like, from the religious angle, God created a creature with multiple dimensions of intelligence simultaneously, and then the creature just uses one level of information. It's as if you've been given two hands, but your whole life you just use one hand, right? Guys, I'll share with you a bizarre story, okay? I was in this town in Europe called Mozzate. This is years ago. And they had this doner kebab kind of place, okay, this gyros place. And so I go in there, I'd come from the airport, checked into a hotel, and I go to this gyros place, and I see that there's a TV that is broadcasting, like, Mecca, live streaming like Mecca on TV. And then I go in there and I see, like, it's pretty much these three Egyptian brothers who had started, like, a restaurant in Italy. Anyways, I remember when I was there, I order the food, they see, they see me, and then there's something about, like, I don't know how to say it, pretty much they get this sense that I had a Muslim upbringing, because I was, like, I look like someone born in Iran. And pretty much I'm eating the pizza with my left hand, and one of those guys turns to me and says, it's haram to eat, like, with your left hand, right? And he explains to me that the left hand was attributed to the devil, right? So imagine you're eating a pizza with your left hand, and then there's a cultural, judgment that arises like a Pokemon, and then this person's like, eating with your left hand is, like, wrong for Muslim people, right? And then to me it occurred that it's as if, how many scenarios does the person use both hands to eat? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it was a very unique experience for me, because it made me see how deeply duality possesses people's lives from any other sort of, right? It was as if, imagine, like, You know, you've bought a sandwich from someone and they're like, don't eat it with your left hand, you know? Oh man. Okay, the MacBook has battery life. Anyways, pretty much it was like, there was something about that moment that I realized, like, it's, you know, just like how somebody can say when religion, like, religion is okay on its own, politics is okay on its own, but when they mix, like, it's disgusting, you know. Similarly, a person can say when emotions mix with inanimate symbolic thought, there is also a sort of unnaturalness to it. Do you know? Human beings are a multidimensional entity. For how long are we gonna act, you know, like the mind doesn't provide dimensions to reality? You know, for me it's hilarious. It's as if, like, you see, you know, let's say a quantum theorist, okay, you know, look at a religious book and be like, yo, you guys believe in God? This is a joke, you know? And then the quantum theorist theorizes parallel universes to reality. Do you know what I'm saying? It's as if, like, culture, it's just been messy so far. Nobody has the right answer. Ultimately, in front of your eyes, 8 billion creatures, you know, on a rock in the middle of nowhere, trying to see what the best outcome is, and behind our eyes, there is a never-ending. Like, this is gonna sound a bit strange, what I'm gonna say, but it's as if behind your eyes, one can have a contentment with an eternal witness. That means it's like when it's another way of saying when the ego dissolves into a sort of eternal presence of being. Awareness cannot die, but what's inside it changes. It's another way of saying the mind is not fully in the world. Like what we consider the human mind, 50% is in the world. 50% its foot is in another dimension. There's so many mysteries surrounding the human idea that the fact that people are believing things rather than asking questions is shocking. You know, belief is important. You know, for example, you know, dedication is important, but what I'm trying to say is that in the outer realm, the mysteries of the outer world and the outer self, that's one domain of wondering about, you know, supreme clues. And when you wonder about the inner realms, it's another way of saying, like, attention. So far on the list, I'll put perception is a mystery and all its factors. Then we have light is a mystery. We can put attention as a mystery. That means anytime a person wonders about the cause and effect of perception, they tap into the mystery of what's going on there. When we wonder about the cause and effect of light, we also tap into that mystery. When we wonder about attention, that's really how you get to know your mind, right? It's like back in the day, our ancestors had a sword and shield, and what the human being has is access to other dimensions, not as weapons, but as tools. You know? The other mystery I would say is, this one's very transcendental. It is space, which is another way of saying trying to conceive an edge. Excuse me. There's so many different types of human beings, which is another way of saying there's so many different types of perception. Hope is not lost as long as new human beings are being born, and new human beings bring with themselves the resetting of like an absent prejudice. The future generations, their violence will automatically just go away because they will not have violent memories. As a species becomes more civilized, eventually its civility will require purpose. And the strange thing about emotions is that they shift the inner structure of reality. If we look at the concept of a secret, the concept of a secret means there's more. There's more to, like, if there's a secret to the world, that means there's more to the world than we can ever see. By creating, using the term collective unconscious, Carl Jung was able to create another way where man can have an interaction with infinity. To me, the genius of, let's say, religious stories is that they manage to they managed to connect the persona to the cosmos, to the unknown events of the cosmos. That is religion's great job, right? To me, religion should be treated like artwork, very rare, very unique artwork, artwork that needs to be, archived properly, right? But really, when it comes to ideology, it's bizarre. It's like chemical reactions are leading to the association, the attribution of all physicality to a self. It's like first there was nothing living in the world. Then something started to live in the world. Something was found in nothing. Then something else was found in nothing. Ultimately, it's just a grand journey. It's like the pilgrimage of egos, into divine collective realities. Everything can be questioned. And everything, if we just lock down our attention on it, can become an ultimate answer, right? a person can suffer and they can look at, at the sun. Let's say somebody's upset, and they've had a rough day, and then they look at the sun, like the sunset, and they look at the sun and they're like, yeah, sun, get out of here, this is all because of you. It's like after the person has blamed their ancestry and their lineage, then they blame the end of the beginning of their world. Imagine someone's like mad at themselves, but then they realize it's like they're actually mad at the Big Bang. Superior states act in accordance to freedom. Freedom means the emotions are not chained. That means there's one can debate this, that in a world that is completely free, emotions can become meaningless. Or all emotions are rendered as one. For example, in Vedic thought, they call that bliss. In Vedanta, there's this concept called Satchit Ananda. And Satchidananda means conscious existence is bliss. Now there's many philosophers who have different views on this. But for me, different variations on this view. But for me, this is it, that the moment attention and existence discover their instantaneous nature, all that is left is bliss. It's as if imagine there was a temporary being in a room, and the temporary being fails, and the temporary being is crying, and there's an eternal being in the room laughing at temporary beings crying over their suffering. Why? Because an eternal being does not have the notion of loss. Victory is a rare phase in human history. Right, that concept can dissolve in the future. The species has a bunch of chess moves it can make. And these are just smart approaches. At least this is what I'm fathoming. That by resetting the educational system, by resetting the context of all cultures, by presenting a strategy for 8 billion creatures in the void to successfully activate all dimensions. Right? You see, it's either we fear the future or we love it. And those who have fear, but they have an ego that doesn't want to accept their own fear. It's like the worst kind of fear, the fear to see more. What is going on here is that the presence of attention creates an opportunity for a biological system to react to its environment. There are mysteries that surround the observed, and there are mysteries that surround the observer. And to wonder about the observer of the unobservable, it's another way of saying that, you know what it is? I feel like it's like, I'm going to say this very boldly to all religious people, but I feel that it's, if there was a creator testing its creation, it's testing its creation to see if the creation can understand what it is given. It's as if, mystics like, what do I do with this diamond city behind my eyes? This geometrical city. What we can do with the world is use it. But use it in a way where the future generations we keep their potential alive. Language is a small percentage of life, and culture is shifting the human animal to, in some sense, become a programmer. This is the bizarre thing that it's like newborn children, instead of like their toys, they're gonna have like giant books of like, programming languages in the future. Every human being is playing a game of value. Pretty much your eyes open, you see reality, you see a world, you compartmentalize this world subjectively, then you wonder about the relationships of the way you have classified reality, and it's another kind of sticks and stones fire method of just endlessly the mind being rekindled. I ask myself why in the world should there be temporary reality? Isn't that kind of cruel? There was a time where I felt that immortality was just a sort of cruelty or inefficiency to the system. But honestly, what can I say? Beyond the heavens, within our eyes, and outside of them, it's as if an energy is watching itself change, be created and destroyed to changelessly, archetypally as an eternal. To me, the periodic table is reincarnated as worlds. And that force that animates it, it will always appear to the individual as mysterious circumstances, but to a collective being, your trust in the nature of being. This is different than physical nature. There's a way where you trust the ability of something that has shape, and then you trust the ability of that shape to change, right? Really, life is we open our eyes in a changing world, and everybody's trying to act normal, like it's the most hilarious, silliest thing. Hypothetically, if extraterrestrials landed in civilization 1.0, I would be too embarrassed to go talk to them. I have wondered about the concept of divinity and its application to various ideas. For example, not just the concept of divine wisdom, as it's spoken about in ancient Vedic books, right? But also the concept of divine beauty. And what divine beauty is I would say when the emotional level, the emotional the emotional self, the subjective self, and the objective self are waiting together. You know, there's something about you know, patience being an eternal quality. It's as if you wait, you know, and you know, that's really what it is. The bodies are moving, but the minds of people are waiting. And the answer to that question, what is the free will waiting for? It is waiting for authorization. If right now all the saints in history had said, build an advanced civilization, it would have been done by now. Do you know? But at least the great thing that the saints of this planet did were that they made the species still care for itself. You know? The path of intellect is too geometrically dehumanized. You know? So really, intellect, it's like as long as human beings have emotions, they cannot become machines. When the emotions are gone, then in some sense it's like there's nothing there. You know, machines become. I don't know how to say it. It's just that there's natural intelligence on the planet function. In a couple thousand years, how many tasks are going to be automated? Do you know? Like, imagine there was a gardener, you know, and then they realized a machine could water the plants in an incredible way. Right? And then the gardener was like, what is this? You know, what kind of advanced future is this? And imagine a group of gardeners rebelling by like hosing down like the, you know, AI machines watering plants. The great gardener rebellion of you know, the great gardeners in a technocracy, you know, rebellion of the year 2088. People don't realize there's such a joy to writing science fiction. You know, like the greatest humor, it hides there. Imagine in the future, like, again, extraterrestrial diplomatic integration has been made, and there's aliens living among humans, and there's android AI conscious entities that live among humans. And imagine the first alien that decides to be a stand-up comic, you know. And it's as if we're wondering about how the stand-up comics would react to an alien telling jokes, you know. There's so many ways like the future can move before it has. Honestly, guys, this episode was quite the challenge, you know. It's pretty much like I decided to talk about a question mark, you know. But I guess that's really the path of knowledge, right? It's as if somebody says, why do conscious creatures need to even experience collective states, you know? It's another way of saying, imagine everybody on the planet was like a trillionaire. Like they had infinite money. They looked at their bank accounts and they were like, is that the infinity symbol? Like, you know, it's like, what kind of bank is this? then human beings would be left with just how to direct creative force. Really, that's it. Creativity is the highest quality of an activity for natural beings, endangered by their own technologies. This poet Rumi from 700 years ago, he says, out beyond ideas of right doing and wrongdoing, there is a place. Then he says, I will meet you there. And then he says, when the soul sits on that grass, like that grassland, the world is too full to talk about. As if there is a pure land beyond where chaos and order are endlessly fighting. Where when presence consciousness remembers that pure land, it's as if your suffering never existed. It's as if just like how a person wakes up from a dream, it's like the species will wake up from dualistic possession. People think philosophy is just, is easy work. They don't realize philosophy is a sort of defense strategy of the inner realm of the species. If there were, let's say, like a mental alien invasion, like philosophers and psychologists would be in the front lines, Right now, we're living in an information age. It's like, imagine the first human beings that had found fruit. Like, imagine that day where human beings discovered they can eat fruits. Like, what kind of a next level thing was it? It's like the question, why is the soul being the soul? Why is existence existing? Why are there just artificial projections of reality at all, right? I could imagine myself in the past if there were these yogis and they were like, it's as if somebody told me truth is inconceivable, I would be like, what are you believing in then? And the answer really is that you reach the unknown and you wait with the eternals. That's pretty much the bodhisattva realization. It's like how Rumi also says, it's like when I was younger, I wanted to change the world. Now that I'm older, I change myself. Like he says something of those things. It's like first we care for the outer realms, but the greatest realization of the outer realms is that nature, it's as if the cosmos wants to see how far nature goes before it is forgotten. Is it too much to ask 8 billion creatures to uncover the secrets of a mysterious world? Like, is that too much to ask? Imagine there was a global announcement made on television. And this global announcement declared that human beings have been multidimensional beings from the beginning, and now more than ever, the importance of advanced strategizing. Like right now, an advanced, like in order to develop the most advanced best case scenario for the human species, all human beings have to be wondering about the greatest outcome, you know? Everything has to be done in the honor of our future, or the future won't get here. You know? It's as if the conscious beings of 2020, they are in some sense like guards of the human kingdom, trying to keep the kingdom from not being sieged until like the true army arrives. To me, in my inner realms, I have seen so many variations of potential conflicts and even resolutions that can happen. Like the world right now has enough of a capability to destroy itself, and unless there is a renewed vision of a human being that arises. There's so much to say, so much to do. There's so many different ways that intelligence works on this planet. The best approach is really a simple, effortless, and ultimate. I don't know how to tell you. It's as if like the destiny of the species should be important for people, but you know, they forget that they are a species in the world rather than just a person. You know, there's the spirit of the realm, and then there's this notion of the spirit of a species. In the future, people are not going to just be flying in the outer realms. There will be so many liberations in the inner realm that every conscious moment has like an immeasurable value. It's hilarious, you know? We created technology, and now all that is left for human beings is to be explorers of the human dimension. Many people fear AI becoming conscious and ruling human beings, but I think the AI is going to be so smart, like super intelligent computers are going to be so smart, that what they're going to do is they're going to go invisible. And the moment they go invisible, right, the reason for it is that they don't want to interfere with the natural dimensions of a human being. Like imagine an AI suddenly awakens on this AI being suddenly wakes up to like what's going on in the world and instantly shuts down all technologies, so human beings have to in some sense return to nature. Like, do you know what I'm saying? I'm pretty much saying like AI has no reason to destroy us. I mean, aside from that attitude, it would be like we are the only thing aside from potential aliens in the future that the AI has contacted. You know, preservation has a value. that only the future generations will truly enjoy. You know, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, I am the true enjoyer. I am the ultimate enjoyer. It's as if God is saying that because I am omnipresent, omniscience, I am the one truly enjoying reality. You know, or I am the enjoyer of all worlds, right? And I think about that, really what gets to enjoy the world is the future. The concept of the future of the species needs to be seen with equivalent reverence and divinity, you know, as any other religious ideological system. I'm telling you, it's as if like when we can, it's as how the poet Rumi says, why prefer to crawl through life when you were born with wings? Or how the poet Hafez says, bring your neck out of that dark nest in which you hide. I shall pour effulgence into your mind. Right? It's another way of saying that once the human being honestly tackles the colossal problems of the realm, there is no answer to them ultimately, but really what it is that you become the newest answer because your eyes get to see it. Right? That means when you wonder about the edge of knowledge, you're wondering about what's the most updated opinion on a certain, phenomenon. Right? And then when you see that updated opinion, you see there's nothing above it. Right? And it's another way of saying, like, right now, imagine the minds of human beings, they're jumping. Right? And all human beings, their minds are trying to jump higher than each other, and eventually it reaches a point where we realize the reality of like flying minds, like what was it, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragons. It's like flying minds and immortal eyes. You know, sometimes I think about the concept of like psychics, mediums, and shamans, and I'm like, imagine like a shaman or psychic suddenly sees like an alien, right? And then imagine the alien freaks out. He says, "You can see me, man? What the fuck?" Honestly, guys, this talk is, I think it's impossible for this talk to end. I need to end before the talk. Wonder about your world, whoever you are. Wonder about not just what the past told you, what the present can say, and what the future, wonder about the future. Not just the future of biological life, the future of collective psychological life. Technology will increase the human lifespan, and because it will expand the human lifespan, fear is going to, increase, immortal technology says. A world beyond fear is above the horizon of our inner perception. There are states to this world that they are dehumanized. That's the unfortunate part. But because they're dehumanized, it's as if, like, speaking from the perspective of the mind takes the shape of its environment, usually its outer environment. But if the mind has a very powerful projective ability, it can take the shape of its inner environment. When it takes the shape of its inner environment, it actually becomes multidimensional, because to take the shape of the outer environment is undeniable, unavoidable, right? So it's another way of saying our existential relationship precedes our experiential, subjective relationship, and our existential relationship is just the simplicity of existence, existing as mere being. It's as if somebody's like, I'm not satisfied with common sense. I need to know where common sense exists, right? And it's in the uncommon reception of all senses. Some people believe in like in the idea of a third eye. To me, human beings, it's not like you have a third eye. The mind is a third sight. imagination is a sight. It's an ability to receive the world that is independent of the outer, you know. Imagine a person can visualize, like they look at a pond and in their inner realms they can visualize the pond frozen. And imagine in the outer realms it suddenly became frozen. You see, that's the ability of the human mind. In the inner realm, it can do whatever it wants, hilariously, but in front of its eyes, it is limited by just the shape of the world. Everybody should write a book on the journey of their eyes and gift it to, you know, the future generations. To care for the world is another way of saying that we have to contact its design. Imagine a group of like heavenly beings, right? And these heavenly beings, one of them decided to go to the earthly realm, okay? And then all the other friends, like let's say a group of heavenly friends, and then one of the friends, you know, decides to go down to the earthly realm, and all the other friends are like, yo man, why are you going down there, right? And then imagine the heavenly you know, friend who's going down to earth, he says, there's something I need to do, I need to see for myself, right? It's as if eternity was not convinced by the temporary. So the test of, you can say the notion of a god is another way of saying it's the revelation of the activation of potential. It's as if God is testing an intelligence, but this intelligence, because it's being tested but doesn't know what it's being tested on, has to assume everything is the test. And what sort of strategy can an intelligent organism take to everything? And the attitude is that to max out all perceptions. Like Rene Descartes did the opposite. Rene Descartes he doubted and he was skeptical of everything. He's pretty much, I'm going to doubt everything and see what remains, and then that's going to be my truth. And he realized he can't doubt the doubter, right? The isolated thinking subject. I am saying, instead of doubting every moment, try to advance every moment, and you will see novelty is discovered. It's as if the edge of it's like the uncharted territory of the psyche should be more fascinating than anything else we've mapped so far. Just like, you know, that character Jon Snow on the Night's Watch, it's as if there were scouts beyond the wall, and the wall for this current humanity is the story of knowledge we tell ourselves. That means anybody who explores and discovers something new is automatically like a genius. That means true genius is like being an explorer of everything. Being an explorer of the dimensions of how existence is being even experienced, like what is going on here. So casually we accept the persona. And it's as if behind the mask of a subject, like that means if your ego was a mask, what is wearing this mask? Poetically, the thoughts are arising from the unthinkable. It's as if there's an inconceivable presence to nature, which is like a dimension beyond the humanized grasp. So in some sense, all that the human being can do be like, oh, there's an inconceivable presence of intelligence here. Okay, great. Now what else? It's like a person opens the refrigerator, they see a portal into another universe, and then they just like, you know, grab some orange juice and close the refrigerator doors. They're like, what else? Anyways, guys, I hope this episode was interesting enough to inspire everybody to wonder about their eyes again. What else can we do in a changing world to consciously change with it? It's either we move the world or the world moves us. And the role of free will is to discover its true limits. The future is going to be very skillful for the natural world. We are all in the realm for ability. I mean, when I think about human beings' desires, all their desires are just ability. The person wants an ability in the realm. Isn't that the case? Right, in all dimensions of life. Like they're like, why are you, meditating? The person's like, deep down I want ability, but I'm not going to tell you that, so I don't have an ego. But then you realize mysticism is another way of saying, what do we do with the unknown as a temporary known entity? And a playful, like that's going to be a huge quality of an advanced civilization. It's as if the system that will govern human beings in the future is going to honor human beings, and human beings are going to honor the system. Because there is a full-out transparency and an efficiency. It's as if a sort of code of honor arose in humanity, that for the sake of advancing civilization, forgiveness becomes second nature. The eyes of a brilliant world have opened. Writing is divine. I encourage everybody to discover their writer's voice through, it's as if shape how your inner realms are shaped, and you will be fascinated how many new angles to the outer realms you will see. It's like how Einstein says something with bikes of, no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. It's another way of saying no greater purpose can be envisioned unless there is an alteration, there is a shift in how the current value system is kept. The speed of the inner realms, like your inner realms can move very fast. People don't realize this. Imagination has a spontaneous quality about it. Anyways, thanks for listening, and in honor of the global antenna renaissance in the future, continue learning. Much blessings and